If you ask the Justice League when they realized this crisis was different, none of them would agree on the exact moment. For Superman, it began as a feeling. He stood at the Watchtower's main viewport, arms folded, watching the anomaly bleed across the upper atmosphere. It looked like a storm cell in space, a dark bruise spreading where stars should be, light bending wrong around a center that refused to glow. He'd seen mother boxes tear open reality, watched boom tubes unspool tunnels of violet fire flown through black holes that howled in X-ray. This was none of those things. "Whatever that is," he said quietly, "it's afraid." Behind him, keyboards chimed and hard light interfaces hummed. Cyborg sat half-merged with the primary console, data streams cascading through his vision. Energy signatures, magnetic flux, soft X spectral shifts. None of it made sense. "It's not just afraid," Victor muttered. "It's lying. The readings keep trying to resolve into familiar profiles. Apocalyptian, New Genesis, even our own teleport grid, and then they twitch away like it doesn't want to be identified." "So it's masking itself," Batman said from the shadows of the monitoring deck. He stepped forward, cape brushing the floor, cowl eyes pale and unreadable. "Mimicry at a cosmological scale, that's new." Across the room, Green Lantern hovered cross-legged in the air, rings sketching defensive constructs almost unconsciously. "So we shut it down," Hal said. "Box it, bleed it, punt it back to wherever it crawled from. We've done worse." Flash leaned back in his chair, boots propped on a console that did not strictly belong to him. His outline shimmered, never quite still. "I don't know, Big Green," Barry said. "Feels like the cue in a horror movie where the guy with the ring says we've done worse and then the universe says challenge accepted." Diana tightened the last strap on her bracer and lifted her shield. The metal caught starlight, reflecting the anomaly as a warped, dark smear. "Whatever it is," Wonder Woman said, "we don't wait. Danger this close to the world calls for action. We meet it before it can decide how to meet us." Martian Manhunter stepped closer to the viewport, his gaze distant, his mind reaching. For him, the anomaly was not light and magnetism. It was a sound, an ocean of whispers tuned just beyond hearing. He extended his consciousness and gagged. The void screamed back at him. Not in words, not in images, but in a raw collective terror so dense it had weight. Minds upon minds, billions layered on billions, all turned toward a single absent sun and begging not for salvation, but for permission to exist one more day. Joan staggered. Diana's hand was on his shoulder in an instant. "John?" He shook his head slowly. "It is an opening. Not a door, but a leak. On the other side is a sea of thought, human mostly, all of them. Afraid, all of them certain their fear is justified." Batman's eyes narrowed. "Human. So we're not looking at apocalypse, parallel Earth, parallel nightmare," Flash said. "Great. We never get sucked into the universe where everyone's fine and social media is nice." Cyborg's voice cut through, harsher now. "Jokes later. The anomaly is stabilizing into a funnel. It's not just there. It's taking hold of our gravitational frame. We're the drain, and somebody upstream just pulled the plug." The watchtower lurched. Superman felt it as a shudder through the deck, a wrongness in his inner ear. In the viewport, the bruise in space bulged, then convulsed. Stars yawned inward. The black at its center did not glow, but drank light so completely that even his eyes found nothing to focus on. "Lantern," he said. "Bubble us. Full containment." Hal's ring blazed, emerald light snapping outward in a lattice that wrapped the watchtower in a shell of will. "On it. I'll give us a green zone, keep our structure intact while..." Reality slipped. For an instant, directions lost their meaning. Up forgot how to be up. Down panicked and ran. Flash watched the room smear sideways in a dozen timelines at once. His hand passed through solid metal as if the atoms had decided they didn't know each other. "That's not supposed to happen," he managed, his voice echoing from half a second in the future. To Superman, it was worse because he saw everything. The anomaly wasn't dragging them through space, it was refiling them under a different set of physical laws. The spectrum changed. The cosmic background snapped to a new pitch. For a heartbeat, he heard something vast and hateful laugh without sound. Then they were no longer above Earth. The sudden presence of a different star burned his eyes for a fraction of a second before his vision adapted. The planet below was not blue and green. It was a diseased marble of gray and rust, its surface scabbed over with continent-spanning cities and smoke that crawled around the curve like a halo of filth. There were ships in orbit, hundreds, maybe thousands, each one the size of a city, all Gothic spires and armored prows bristling with gun decks. They did not look like vehicles designed by an optimistic species. They looked like cathedrals ripped from the ground and taught the concept of hate. "Definitely not Kansas," Hal breathed. Cyborg's systems flared as they auto-calibrated to the new universe. All his familiar reference points, GPS constellations, Star Labs beacons, League comms, were gone. In their place, coarse, encrypted bursts of Vox traffic, litanies encoded as machine code, static choked with chanting and gunfire. "I'm getting a language," he said. "They keep repeating the same identifier, Imperium of Man, and something about a throne." Outside, the sky of the 41st millennium opened its jaws to swallow them. The Justice League braced themselves and dove anyway. None of them yet understood that this was the kind of universe that swallowed miracles and called it Tuesday. For the Imperium of Man, the intruders were never mysterious visitors. They were a problem to be solved with high explosives. On the command deck of a battleship, an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos watched the green shell around the unknown structure flicker on his hololiths. "Classification?" he asked. A robed adept whispered to her machine spirits. "Warp emergence without Geller shielding, Lord. No match on sanctioned Xenos index. Primary emission reads as focused will energy outside current Psychana models." "In other words, witchcraft," she said. He nodded once. "Raise void shields. Bless the macro batteries. Target the anomaly and fire for effect." Servitors plugged their dead hands into firing thrones. Gunnery crews chanted as they rammed shells into breaches. On decks lined with stained glass, the big guns of the 41st millennium woke up. In low orbit, Hal felt it as a pressure in his chest. "Their guns just got a lot more interested in us," he said. The green lattice around the shattered watchtower thickened as he poured will into it. "Pretty sure those cannons were built to argue with asteroids." "You can hold," Batman said. "I can hold for a minute," Hal shot back. The first salvo arrived as streaks of white fire. Each shell hit the emerald barrier like a god's hammer, turning the shield into a blinding sphere for a heartbeat. The construct held, but the impact kicked the watchtower into an ugly spin. Secondary hulls sheared away, spiraling off as burning scrap. Flash grabbed a railing as Down tried to escape the room. "Okay, yeah, this officially qualifies as worse." Superman felt the structural stresses racing through the station. Panels buckled, supports screamed. Below them, the diseased planet waited with the patience of gravity. "We can't stay up here," he said. "If this falls on the wrong spot, we become the artillery." He turned to Cyborg. "Victor, who's under us?" Cyborg's systems dove into the local Vox traffic. Static, barked orders, the drumbeat of artillery. "Primary population center almost directly beneath," he said. "Hive City, I'm reading ground combat, airstrikes, void shields flickering. Somebody down there is already having the worst day of their lives. We drop the watchtower on them, we finish it. Then we don't, Superman replied. Lantern, keep us wrapped just long enough to steer the wreckage away from the hive. After that, we ride what's left down. Hal stared at him. You want to surf a burning space station into a war zone. I want to keep it from killing people, Superman said. Everything after that, we improvise. Diana nodded. Where the fire is hottest, she said. We land there. They ran, feet pounding on decks that couldn't decide which way to tilt. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut behind them. Sparks danced along cracked conduits. They reached a jagged breach near the external hangar. Beyond it, space churned, warped starlight, looming battleships, the diseased planet swelling to fill the view. Heat licked at the torn edges of the hull as the station bit into the atmosphere. Hal hovered just outside, construct flaring, holding the watchtower in a shrinking bubble of green. Any slower, he called, and we're going to start leaving pieces of ourselves up here. Superman stood at the brink. Far below, the hive world resolved into impossible detail. Continent-spanning cityscapes, rivers that glowed the wrong colors, thin flickers of surface gunfire. There, he said, pointing at a swelling bruise of explosions along a mid-hive platform. Some kind of battle line. That's where we'll be needed most. Cyborg nodded. Confirmed. Massive small arms fire, armor signatures, something big in the lower levels, and panic, lots of panic. Joan brushed the psychic field of the hive, millions of minds layered in fear and duty. They expect shells, not visitors, he said. Then let's surprise them, Superman said. Lantern on my count. Shrink the field around just us and let the rest of the station go. We ride in under our own fireball, Hal sighed. Risk management, 0. Style points, 10. 3, Superman said. Behind them, the watchtower groaned. 2, Hal's ring flared. The green shell peeled back from the station's ruined mass, folding tight around the League in a teardrop of light. 1! The bubble snapped free. Freed of its cocoon, the watchtower plunged ahead, a tumbling carcass of metal. Macro shells slammed into it, blowing it apart into a storm of burning fragments that streaked across the upper atmosphere. The League followed in their own controlled fall, a spear of emerald fire punching into the cloud layer. Friction howled around them, turning the construct's outer skin into a shrieking corona. To Imperial augurs, it read as debris. To the guardsmen in the trenches ringed around the hive, it looked like a star falling too slow, too deliberate. The green capsule knifed out of the smog a few kilometers above the battlefield. Below, the hive city rose in tiers. Walls, defense bastions, manufactoria belching smoke, hab blocks stacked like tombstones. Between them, in the killing fields, lines of soldiers and tanks traded fire with shapes that didn't fit a sane silhouette. Superman watched tracer fire crawl across no man's land, saw artillery blossoms walk their way toward the defensive line. Lantern, he said, bleed speed. Put us down just behind their front line. We don't know who's in charge yet, but the ones in the trenches are trying not to die. That's good enough for me. Copy that, Hal replied. The construct flared, catching air, trading velocity for heat and light. In a muddy trench, an Imperial guardsman looked up from his laser gun just in time to see the emerald meteor unfold into shapes that looked, for a heartbeat, like angels. All his life he had been told that the Emperor watched over him. This was the first time anything from the heavens had looked back without immediately trying to kill him. The first person on this world to see the Justice League land was a man who expected to die in the next 5 minutes. Trooper Callan of the 903rd Harrowborn crouched in a trench that had stopped being a fortification and become a grave with ambition. Mud sucked at his boots as last fire stitched red lines across the smoke. "Hold the line," bellowed the commissar. "By his will, you will not break." Callan squeezed off another burst. The target fell. Something behind it stepped on it and kept coming. What was not normal was the sky changing color. For a heartbeat, the permanent gray above the hive flickered green as if someone had sliced the smog and shone clean light behind it. Callan risked a glance over the parapet. A star was falling behind their lines. It cut through the clouds in a spear of emerald fire, shedding smaller streaks of debris. It wasn't a shell. Shells screamed down and exploded. This thing slowed. The fire wrapped around it like a cloak, not a coffin. The green meteor hit the churned mud behind the trench and did not explode. It slammed into the ground hard enough to rattle teeth, dug a crater, and then held there humming. A teardrop of light punched into reality. The teardrop unfolded. Hal let the construct dissolve in layers, petal by glowing petal, bleeding off the last of their speed into sheets of harmless light that washed across the trenches. Guardsmen stared up at the figures at the center of the crater. 8 silhouettes stood outlined against the hive's skeletal skyline. One in blue and red with a cape. One in bronze and scarlet with a shield. A man in black. A ring bearer in a nimbus of green. A red blur. A towering figure of living metal. A tall, calm alien. At their center, Superman took in the battlefield. He saw guardsmen in torn flak armor, tanks grinding their tracks into mud, the enemy charging. Twisted human forms crawling with symbols, armored giants hurling gouts of warp fire, shadows that moved wrong. A gout of warp fire arced toward the trench. Superman launched from the crater in a blur of blue and red. The flame hit his chest and washed around him, hissing. It hurt, the way magic always hurt, but it didn't stop him. He plowed into the thing that had thrown it, a towering warrior in spiked plate. The Chaos Champion laughed until Superman's fist met his helm and drove him into the dirt. On the line, someone shouted, "Saint!" Wonder Woman vaulted out of the crater, landing on the parapet. Her shield snapped up, catching a hail of mass reactive shells from a heretic heavy, Bolter. She advanced through the barrage, and when she reached the gun, tore it from its mount. "Fall back from the trench," she told the nearest guardsman. "Regroup behind the armor. We will hold this breach." Green constructs snapped into being overhead as Lantern threw up a dome along the forward line. Shells and warp-twisted projectiles splashed against the barrier in fireworks. Cyborg dropped to one knee, palm hitting the churned earth. The local datanet hit him, vox chatter, targeting feeds, system alerts. "I can ride their auspex," he said. Tag hostile armor, patch their fire control." "Do it," Batman replied. John moved along the trench, intangible where the worst fire swept through, solid when he reached huddled soldiers. "Your enemy is strong," he told them, "but they bleed. Aim, fire." Flash became a red thread stitching the battlefield together, dragging wounded clear, breaking enemy weapons, dropping fresh power cells into empty hands. Within moments, the tempo shifted. The line stopped collapsing. It began in places to advance. In the Imperium of Man, miracles are suspicious. At a command dugout behind the lines, an officer watched flickering pict feeds from servo skulls. They showed unknown warriors shrugging off warp fire, a woman deflecting shells with a glowing shield. Constructs of green light behaving like matter. "Report!" snapped a new voice on the Vox. "Unidentified superhuman entities have made planetfall behind first trench, Lord," the officer said. "They engage the enemy effectively. Power levels comparable to Astartes. No heraldry. Phenomena consistent with unsanctioned psychers or Xenos artifacts." "Then they are not allies," the Inquisitor replied. "Units nearest the breach will surround them and hold fire until my arrival. Any attempt at worship or fraternization is heresy." Back in the mud, the first sign that attitudes had changed was the direction of the guns. Lehman Russ battle tanks ground into position behind the trench, turrets swiveling. Dozens of laser guns turned away from the writhing mass of chaos ahead and toward the crater. Superman heard the orders ripple through the Vox net before the barrels moved. He stepped back to the rim, hands open. "We're here to help," he called, amplifying his voice. "Keep firing on your enemy. We are not your— On your knees!" snarled the commissar, bolt pistol leveled at his chest. "Hands on your heads, all of you, now!" Diana's jaw tightened. "Is this how you greet those who saved your line?" "It is how we greet witchcraft," the commissar said. "If you are saints, the God Emperor will judge you. If you are heretics, I will." Hal leaned toward Batman. "We rescue their frontline and get a summary execution notice." "Figures." "Inquisitorial lander incoming," Cyborg said. "Same sigil as the ship that shelled us." A shuttle knifed down through the smog, retro thrusters boiling the mud where it came to rest behind the tanks. Its ramp dropped. A figure in ornate armor and a long coat stepped out, rosette blazing at his collar. "By authority of the Holy Inquisition," he called, "you will submit to examination or be slain where you stand." The Justice League stood in a crater between demons and tanks, with an Inquisitor descending from the sky and a commissar at their backs. Batman exhaled. "Welcome to the Imperium," he said. "We're already surrounded. Must be Tuesday." Inquisitor Varro did not hurry. The mortal men around him ran. Servitors clanked, guardsmen scrambled, officers shouted. But Varro walked down the muddy trench line like a man whose time belonged to a higher authority. His rosette glowed faintly at his collar, a stylized eye surrounded by skulls, drawing the eyes of every soldier who dared look up. At the crater's rim, a commissar stepped aside, jaw tight. "They came from the sky, Lord," he said. "Unknown warp emergence, no Geller fields. They turned the line. Then they refused to kneel." Varro's eyes were pale gray, almost colorless. They passed over Superman's cape, Wonder Woman's armor, the emerald aura still faintly clinging to Hal like afterimages, the living machinery of Cyborg's body, the unmistakable alien silhouette of John Johns. He saw power. He saw aberration. He saw opportunity. "Interesting," he said simply. Around the crater, laser guns flicked between targets, nervous twitching made ritual by training. Superman took a few steps forward, careful, open-handed. "We don't want to hurt anyone," he said. His voice carried over the trench without strain. "We came through something we don't understand. We helped your soldiers because they were about to die, that's all." Varro studied him. His psychic sense, dulled by sanctioned drugs and centuries of trauma, itched. This one shone in the warp like a controlled star, bright, dangerous, but oddly stable. Not a demon, not a typical psyker, something else. "Do you acknowledge," Varro said, "the authority of the Holy Inquisition of the Imperium of Man?" Superman's brow furrowed. "We don't know what that is." "The correct answer," Varro replied, "is yes." He gestured. Dozens of guns clicked in unison. Hal's ring glowed brighter on reflex. "Stand down," Batman said quietly. "They're hoping we resist. Every second we spend in a standoff, they get more nervous. Nervous soldiers make bad choices with big guns." "Yeah, and getting arrested by space fascists sounds like a great alternative," Hal muttered. "Data first," Batman replied. "We're blind. They're not. That's not a fight, it's suicide." Diana stepped to Superman's side, shield grounded, palms open. "If your Inquisition defends this world," she said, "then we will answer your questions, but we will not be treated as beasts or demons." Varro inclined his head the smallest fraction. Defiance and discipline. Noted. You will submit to containment and examination. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. Any attempt at escape will be considered proof of heresy. Do you understand these terms? Cyborg's voice murmured over internal comms. Our options are cooperate and maybe get vivisected, or fight an entire planetary defense grid plus whoever this guy reports to. I vote for intel first, punching later. Martian Manhunter let his senses brush the trench one last time. The guardsman's fear tasted of stale rations and old scars. Under it all lay something deeper, a lifetime of indoctrination, of being told that anything unknown is death in disguise. We should go with them, John said softly into their link. This is not a culture that trusts miracles. Superman nodded once. We'll come, he said aloud. But understand this, we will not stand by if you try to hurt innocents. That hasn't changed just because we fell out of your sky. Your terms are irrelevant, Varro said. You exist at my Emperor's sufferance. He gestured to the waiting lander. Chain them. There was a twitch in the line, a collective inhale. The guardsmen expected resistance. Maybe they even wanted it. There were no chains big enough for beings like this, but that wasn't the point. The act itself was a sacrament. Diana's lips thinned. Flash rolled his eyes and extended his wrists anyway. You know I can vibrate out of literally anything you own, right? He whispered to Batman. Don't, Batman replied. Not yet. The restraints were token gestures, adamantine cuffs inscribed with purity seals, hexagrammatic wards etched into their surfaces, cable-thick chains attached to harnesses. Hal felt the ward sizzle against the ring's aura. Cyborg tasted scrap code prayers running along the metal, little half-sentient routines begging machine spirits for obedience. They let it happen. The lander's interior stank of incense, sanctified oils and stale breath. Servo skulls orbited the central chamber like flies around a carcass, some bearing auspex arrays, others tiny sensors that dripped fragrant smoke, all of them built from human remains. Flash watched one drift past, its candle-greased tears flickering. Okay, he said under his breath. Official verdict, creepiest Uber I've ever taken. The lander shook as it lifted off, pressing them briefly into the deck. Through a grime-smeared viewport, they saw the hive recede, its spires and smokestacks shrinking into a single diseased tooth jutting from the planet's crust. Above, the cathedral ships waited. As they rose toward the looming hull of the nearest cruiser, the scale of the Imperium started to sink in. The ship was a mile-long dagger of armor and buttresses, its every surface infested with weapon batteries and reliquaries. Stained glass windows the size of city blocks depicted scenes of martyrdom and conquest. Gun decks gaped like rows of teeth. Hal whistled. These people saw church and warship and said, why not both? Symbolism is strategy, Batman said. If everyone believes your ships are sacred, they're more willing to die on them. Diana watched the void-scarred hull loom closer, her hand unconsciously brushing the lasso at her hip. A civilization that turns faith into armor and gun barrels, she murmured. I have seen pantheons fall for less hubris. The lander slid into a cavernous hangar bay, one of dozens. Rows of strike craft and atmospheric landers lined the deck, each attended by mechanics and robed tech priests whose bodies were more metal than flesh. Red-robed figures turned as one toward the new arrivals, mechadendrites twitching, optical implants whirring. Ah, Cyborg said quietly. The local IT department. The ramp hissed down. Inquisitor Varro stood at the top of the waiting escort, flanked by stormtroopers in carapace armor and skull-masked helmets. Behind them, a pair of hulking figures in power armor, stormtroopers on the edge of Astartes, rested heavy gauntlets on the grips of their weapons. "This way," Varro said. They were marched through the sanctity of wrath, and for all their power, for all their speed and strength and alien grace, for just a moment the Justice League were simply witnesses. They saw shrines built into bulkheads where crewmen paused mid-shift to mutter prayers to the God Emperor. They saw cogitator banks tended by sequestered adepts, whose eyes had been replaced with brass lenses. They passed a prayer hall where scarred men and women knelt before a statue of a desiccated figure on a throne, head crowned with a halo of metal. "The Emperor," Jones said quietly to the others' minds. "They are thinking of him with a mixture of love and terror, like a god and a nuclear weapon in one. They prayed before opening fire on us," Batman noted. "Ritualizing atrocity, it keeps them sane." "Debatable," Flash muttered. Eventually the corridors narrowed, the ornament faded. The air grew colder, the incense thicker. Hexagrammatic wards appeared on the walls, lines of script carved into metal. "Containment decks," Cyborg said. "These walls are layered with something. Warded alloys. They don't want anything bleeding out or in." Varro stopped before a reinforced door chased with sigils. "You will be separated," he said. "You will be questioned. You will not attempt telepathy, sorcery, or technological intrusion. We will determine what you are and whether you may be allowed to exist." Superman met his gaze. "We didn't come here to be your enemies," he said. "But if you force us to be, you won't like the result." Varro's lips quirked at one corner. It wasn't quite a smile. "Everyone in this galaxy thinks that at first," he replied. "Open the cells." One by one, the Justice League stepped into the Emperor's hospitality. The cell was not a dank stone dungeon. It was worse. Clean, precise, purpose-built. Superman's chamber was a hexagon of black metal panels, each etched with geometric scripts. The air hummed with faint energy. There was no obvious door, only a seam in the wall and an observation slate disguised as decoration. He tested the walls gently at first, pushed. They did not flex. Punched. The impact reverberated through his bones in a way he did not recognize. Something in the alloy drank kinetic energy and whispered hymn code back into the structure. "Someone built this," he thought, "for beings like me." His ears picked up heartbeats through walls, the drag of breath in adjacent cells. Diana to his right, pacing. Hal above, ring dimmed but not extinguished. Victor somewhere deeper, surrounded by a storm of binary and electro prayer that prickled even Superman's teeth. The seam in the wall lit with a faint gold glow. "See, Kal-El of Krypton," a voice said from hidden speakers. "You will answer." The panel slid aside. Inquisitor Varro stepped in, alone. The door sealed behind him with a whisper. Superman watched him carefully. "You know my name." "I know many things I should not," Varro replied. "It is my trade. Your name is in your mind. You wear it like armor. Superman is the mantle. Kal-El is the core. You were in my mind?" "Only at the edges," Varro said. "Anything deeper without proper wards, and I risk drawing attention from other things. You shine brightly in the warp, Kryptonian. It is obnoxious." Superman folded his arms. "You could have just asked." "I am asking now." Varro's pale eyes held his. "What are you?" "A man who won't let people die if he can help it. Sentiment. Insufficient. Your biology? Alien. Last son of a world that died. I was raised on Earth. I protect it." Varro tilted his head. "And yet you are not human, and you wield power sufficient to crack continents. In this galaxy, that combination usually ends with planetary mass graves." It doesn't in mine. Your universe, Varro said, is not here to reassure you anymore. He circled the cell slowly, studying the Kryptonian from every angle. Even now, his hand hovered near a device at his belt, a compact relic radiating null energy, a psychic dead zone in pocket form. I have fought rogue psychers who bled their planet dry, he said calmly. I have interrogated Xenos whose idea of mercy was a quicker vivisection. I have burned worlds because allowing them to live would feed the great enemy with 1 billion screaming souls. Causes and intentions are luxuries, Kal-El. What matters is what you are. And what do you think that is? Superman asked. Varro stopped in front of him, hands folded behind his back. A weapon, he said. The question is whether you are a weapon that can be pointed or one that must be destroyed before it goes off in the wrong direction. People aren't weapons, Superman said. They choose what they fight for. Here, Varro shook his head. Here, we are all ammunition. Some shells are just larger than others. In another cell, Hal faced a different kind of scrutiny. His chamber was a circle, its walls painted with sigils that buzzed against his ring's field like angry insects. Floating servo skulls orbited him, their auspex arrays scanning the emerald light. Across from him stood a robed figure whose face was mostly brass and cable. Where eyes should have been, lenses clicked and zoomed. Mechadendrites writhed around her like inquisitive snakes. Designation: Green Lantern, she said, voice partially mechanical. Artifact: Xenos Energy Conductance Band. Function: reality rewriting via directed will. Hypothesis: unregistered standard template construct. Probability minimal, therefore high-value heretic scrap. Hal leaned back against the invisible barrier with a grimace. Lady, you are absolutely not qualified to touch this ring. Incorrect, the tech priestess replied. Magos Lycinia Delta, Ordo Machinum, 3rd rank of the Titan Forge Collegium, clearance, Omnicia favored. She leaned in closer, lenses whirring as they focused on the ring. You commune with this machine spirit via thought alone. It reshapes momentum, mass, and attractive forces in violation of understood natural law. You will surrender it for proper sanctification and dissection. Nope, Hal said. Hard pass. This ring is synchronized to me. You try and pull it off, it either teleports away, kills you, or both. And if you do manage to brute force it, it'll pick a new bearer. Maybe somebody you like even less. Machine spirits do not choose, Lycinia Delta snapped. They obey, when properly reminded. Hal grinned despite himself. Yeah, see, that's the problem. You think this works like your tech. It doesn't. It's not your god. It's my imagination with a power outlet. From the ceiling, a whisper of binary poured down like rain. Heretical conceptual framework detected, Lycinia Delta said coldly. Reclassification, dangerous Xenos artifact and deviant operator. Requesting Inquisitorial authorization for invasive study. Hal sighed. Next time, Bats gets the science talk. On another deck, Wonder Woman stood in a cell where the walls were carved not with technical sigils, but with scripture. Each line was a prayer, a decree, a condemnation. A man in ecclesiastical black faced her, Aquila pendant glinting. You claim to be a warrior for justice, the confessor said, yet you question the Emperor's wisdom. You refuse to kneel. I kneel for the worthy, Diana replied simply. Not for tyrants, nor for idols I do not know. The Emperor is no idol, the man said, eyes blazing. He is the light in the darkness, humanity's only hope against the warp and its devils. Every breath you take within his realm belongs to him. I have known gods, Diana said. I have seen them fall. I judge them as they judge mortals. If your emperor wishes my worship, he may earn it." The confessor staggered as if struck. He made a sign against evil. "Blasphemy," he hissed. "Arrogance. You speak as if you were divine." "I speak as a warrior who has seen worlds saved by mortal courage," she replied. "If your emperor truly protects you, he will not fear my doubt." In the furthest cell, Martian Manhunter sat cross-legged, eyes closed. The walls around him were lined with psychic dampers, crystalline nodes pulsing with null light. They hissed every time his consciousness brushed them. "Thought criminal," said the skinny astropath who watched him through a slit. Her eyes were bandaged, but a faint aura of warp light danced around her like a dying candle flame. "They say you are a telepath from another place, that you touch minds like books." "I prefer to think of them as songs," Joan replied gently. "Books imply endings." "You will not touch mine," she said. Fear and duty tangled in her scent. "If you do, my soul will scream and the black ships will hear, and then they will burn both of us." "I will not," John said. "I have no wish to cause you pain." He let his awareness seep sideways instead, slipping between the cracks in the ship's constant mental noise. He felt the crew, tired, devout, resigned. He felt the Miego's hungry curiosity, the confessor's righteous fury, Varro's cold calculation, and he felt something pressing against the Geller field from the other side. Curious, hungry, amused, like a predator watching new prey at the edge of its territory. The warp had noticed them. It began with a prayer that skipped. On the sanctity of Wrath's bridge, a choir of robed psychers chanted the litany of safe passage. Their voices wove into the hum of the Geller generator, a psychic bulwark pressing outward against the tide of unreality. For a time, all was steady. Then one of them faltered. Just a syllable dropped, a note missed. Maybe she remembered a face she should have forgotten. Maybe a tiny shard of doubt slipped past her lifetime of training. In the warp, doubt is not a private matter. The pressure outside the ship surged. In his cell, John stiffened. The walls shivered with psychic force. Cracks formed in the carefully layered dampers, hairline fractures in a dam holding back an ocean of madness. He heard laughter, distant and many-throated. "Not good," he murmured. On the bridge, warning runes flared red. "Warp pressure spike," an officer shouted. "Geller field fluxing." "Reinforce the litany," the captain roared. "Astropaths to secondary chorus. Tech priests to the generator." In the gloom of the generator shrine, Magos Lycinia Delta received the emergency cant, binary squeals echoing along her implants. She turned from her data feed of Hal's ring with a snarl. "Stabilize the field," she snapped to her attendants. "Purge all non-essential loads. Divert power from macro batteries if necessary." "Hostile warp entanglement detected," droned a nearby servitor, its fleshless jaw clacking. "Is it them?" Lycinia Delta wondered aloud. "Did bringing these anomalies aboard pollute the pattern?" In his cell, Hal felt the ring twitch. He said to no one. "Guys, the green flashlight says space is about to have a nervous breakdown." The ring's psychic connection licked at his thoughts, showing him images. The vacuum outside boiling into colors no human eye could see, shapes forming in the roiling nightmare beyond the hull. Things with too many teeth, things with no faces at all. In Superman's cell, the temperature dropped. His breath fogged, which shouldn't have happened. He didn't breathe like humans did, not here, not at this ambient temperature. He heard it in the metal, a grinding, groaning, as if the ship itself were being chewed on. "Varro," he said, "what's happening?" The Inquisitor's gaze had gone distant, tilted slightly upward as if listening to something only he could hear. We are translated in the immaterium, Varro said calmly. The warp. Normally the Geller field keeps it out, prevents demons from crawling into our reality. He looked back at the Kryptonian. Something is pressing harder than it should. Perhaps it smells you. Superman stepped closer, chains creaking. Let us help. You will remain where you are, Varro replied. A scream cut through the ship's noise, not physical, but psychic. Joan flinched as it slammed into his mind, the death cry of one of the choir. Their bulwark is cracking, he said into the mental link. If it fails entirely, this vessel will become a buffet for entities you do not wish to meet. Outside, reality tore. The warp didn't so much breach as leak. Patches of unreality bubbled up along the sanctity of Wrath's length, in corridors, in cargo holds, in the hangar where the League had arrived. Shadows detached from walls and walked. Blood wept from icons. Servo skulls turned their guns on their masters as alien intelligences puppeted their targeting spirits. In one corridor, a bulkhead bulged like soft wax and then burst outward as a clawed hand. The size of a tank's turret punched through, dragging a torso of meat and blades behind it. The demon roared, its voice a chord of hate that made men bleed from their eyes. Fire teams opened up, laser guns spitting coherent light, bolters boomed. The demon waded through the fusillade, each hit burning away a piece of its flesh. Only for more to boil up underneath. On the containment deck, red lights strobed. Automatic systems woke. Purge protocols initiated. Gas flooded certain cells. Shackles tightened on others. In John's room, the null field generators pushed past safe output, smothering his senses under a blanket of cold. Unacceptable, he whispered. If I suffocate in this, I will be as useless as any other dead man. He phased halfway out of his body, slipping into intangibility. For a moment, he existed in the cracks between atoms, occupying the empty spaces matter pretended not to have. The dampers screamed as they tried and failed to get a grip on him. He slid through the floor. In Hal's cell, the walls moved, not physically, in his perception. The ring showed him a lattice of constructs woven into the cell's structure, wards, dampers, subspace anchors. They relied on stable space-time. The warp surge was shaking that stability. Ring, he whispered. Find me the weakest link. A flare of emerald illuminated a hairline fault where two ward plates met. A glitch in the precision. Hal focused. Willed the ring's energy into a paper-thin blade no wider than a thought, and slid it into the crack. The sigils sparked and died in one small patch. The cell shuddered. Magos Lycinia Delta's monitors spiked. Containment breach in Xenos Cell 3, a servitor droned. Override local alarms, she snapped. We cannot spare forces for one prisoner while the Geller field is under assault. Hal stepped through the hole in his own prison wall, constructs blossoming around his wrists, shredding the symbolic chains. The cell door's inner mechanisms were no match for pure will focused like a scalpel. Superman's restraints groaned as he pulled. He had been gentle until now, testing, respecting that this universe might be more fragile than his own. Now, with something monstrous trying to rip the ship apart around them, he let go of some of that restraint. The chains snapped. The hexagrammatic wards flared, then cracked like ice on a spring river. He tore them apart, stepped to the wall, and drove his fist into it with enough force to crack mountains. This time it yielded. Metal bulged inward, then burst, spraying shards into the corridor outside. Stormtroopers staggered back, raising their weapons. "Stand down!" Superman shouted. "Your ship is under attack! Let us help or get out of the way!" One man, face half melted by decades of recycled air and cheap combat stimulants, met his gaze. In his eyes, Superman saw terror and duty. The man's finger tightened on the trigger anyway. The bolt round never landed. A green construct snapped into existence between them, catching the exploding shell. Hal floated into view, a corona of emerald around him. "Hey," he said, "you guys really need better prison design and maybe fewer hell dimensions next door." Behind them, John rose up through the floor like a ghost, solidifying with a grimace. "The hull is compromised in 9 sections," he said. "Demons are aboard. They are killing indiscriminately." Diana's cell door exploded outward as she kicked it off its hinges, shield already raised, sword drawn. Her bracers shone with lingering ward light. "If this is your Emperor's idea of safe travel," she said, joining them in the corridor, "he and I will have words." Cyborg arrived last, body humming with stolen ship code. Panels slid open at his gesture, rerouting power, sealing bulkheads. "I've got partial control of internal defenses," he said, "but the warp is messing with their logic. Half the turrets don't know what to shoot at. Some of them are turning on friendlies." Superman looked down the corridor toward the distant roar of something inhuman. "We didn't start this," he said, "but we're here." He turned to the stormtroopers who were still aiming their weapons at the group, hands shaking. "Your people are dying," he said. "We can stop it, or you can shoot us and hope your god sorts the rest out. Decide." One of them swallowed. The barrel of his gun dipped just slightly. "Holy Emperor, preserve us," he whispered. "Go." Superman nodded once. "Stay behind us. Try not to shoot the people saving your ship." They ran toward the breach, toward the howling warp and the demons forcing their way inside. Behind them, the alarms of the Imperium shrieked. Ahead, the nightmares of the 41st millennium waited to see what these new, bright toys could do. And somewhere on the bridge, Inquisitor Varro watched his containment plan dissolve into cave and knew 3 things at once. They were more dangerous than he had hoped. They were more necessary than he had feared. And the galaxy had just become a much more interesting place. The first demon they saw up close did not look like a monster from a myth. It looked like a mistake someone had made while trying to sculpt a human out of rage. It forced itself through the ruptured bulkhead with a scream of tearing metal and grinding nightmares. Flesh boiled out of nothing, shaping itself into overlapping plates of meat armor studded with teeth and bone. Its eyes were pits full of red lightning. Its claws left gouges in the deck that smoked. It smelled like slaughterhouses and burned incense. Stormtroopers opened fire immediately. Last bolts splashed against its hide, leaving smoking craters that closed again with obscene eagerness. A bolt round took it in the chest. The explosion blew away half its torso. It staggered, then laughed in a voice like grinding tank treads. The missing meat regrew, steaming, reshaping itself into a spiked pauldron. "Okay," Flash said, skidding to a stop beside Superman. "New rule, if it laughs off explosives, we move to plan punch." Superman didn't bother answering. He moved. He hit the demon like a blue bullet, shoulder first, driving it back through the torn bulkhead into the half-formed warp breach behind it. The air in the hole shimmered like hot tarmac. On the other side, something vast and hungry pressed against reality, eager to widen the crack. The demon's claws raked across his suit, leaving 4 long gashes that smoked, the fabric refusing to knit for just a second too long. It grinned at him with too many mouths. "Blood for—" Superman's fist cut the slogan off, burying itself in the demon's face hard enough to fold its skull in on itself. The thing popped like a diseased bubble, spraying warp ichor that sizzled where it hit the deck. "Whoever that was for," Superman muttered, "they're not getting it today." Behind him, Wonder Woman blocked a flurry of warp shards with her shield, each impact ringing like a wrong note. She stepped into the blasts, bracers flaring as she redirected the energy into a shining arc that cut a lesser demon in half. "Form a line," she shouted to the stormtroopers. "Shields and bodies together. Fear gives them strength. Stand, and you weaken them." They did not know her. They did not trust her, but something in her voice, in the way she planted her feet, as if she had never once considered retreat, cut through the panic. The nearest squad pulled in around her, laser guns braced, forming a ragged semicircle behind her shield. Their faith wasn't in her yet, but it was for a moment in the idea that someone was not afraid. That was enough. Hal swooped down the corridor, constructs bursting from his ring. Thick, translucent bulwarks that slid into place between breaches and crew clusters. Drones, scanners, hard-light Gatling guns spun up and spat emerald rounds into the warpborn. "Okay," he said, mostly to himself. "Rule 1, don't think about how ugly they are. Rule 2, don't let them touch you. Rule 3, if any of them start monologuing about skulls, double the shield thickness." Behind him, Cyborg's arm reconfigured into a cannon whose barrel was an overlay of human engineering and improvised 40K logic. He'd already hacked half the sanctity of Wrath's internal systems on the way here. Now he hijacked a nearby corridor defense grid, redirecting its turrets away from terrified crew and toward the mass of horrors trying to claw their way in. "Automated point defense online," he said. "Let's see how you freaks like mass reactive studded flechette." The turrets opened up, a wall of fire joining the League's efforts. Demons staggered, shredded, only to regrow, slower now, under the combined assault of human belief, Imperial steel, and alien willpower. John moved like a shadow in zero gravity, phasing through bulkheads, reaching ahead of the physical battle. In the narrow psychic space where the warp bled through, he saw more than shapes. He saw intent. The demons were not random. Something was guiding them with a strategist's patience. Every push against the hull had a purpose. Probe the Geller field, exploit the weakest psyker, thin the crew at the critical shrines. "It is testing us," he said into the shared link, like a biologian prodding a specimen. "Tell the biologian to pick another lab rat," Flash replied. He was everywhere at once, to mortal eyes, a red streak that blurred from deck to deck. He yanked crew members away from claws a second before impact, snatched prayer sheets from the air before they fell into warp fire, bounced off walls to deliver impossible angle punches that turned lesser demons into warp fire splatters. More breaches opened. The sanctity of Wrath was an old ship, packed with too many souls, carrying too much fear. The warp loved that. It pushed wherever the hull of reality was thinnest, birthing horrors in cargo bays, engine shrines, even in the chapel where the faithful knelt. On the bridge, Captain Corvin clung to the command throne, knuckles white. "Report!" he shouted. "Multiple boardings along decks 12 through 19. An officer rattled off. "Geller field holding at 70%, dropping. Internal casualties escalating." The picked feed showed blurred shapes fighting in corridors. Green constructs. A red blur, blue and red, monsters dying in ways that suggested physics was only a suggestion. "Those are the Xenos witch things," someone hissed. "They walk like demons." "Maybe," Corvin said. "But the demons are dying, and we are not yet dead. I will take my miracles where I find them." Inquisitor Varro stood at the back of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. His expression didn't change, but behind his eyes, calculus ran. "Patch me into shipwide Vox," he said. A servitor clicked and obeyed. "This is Inquisitor Varro," his voice rolled through the sanctity. "All hands, hold the Ecclesiarchy. Litany. Maintain fire discipline. Trust your officers. Do not break formation. There are anomalous entities aboard. For now, they kill the same enemies we do. Let them." He closed the channel. "If they survive," he murmured to himself, "we will have more questions." On the containment deck, more demons boiled out of ruptured walls, smaller than the first, but faster, spikier. One lunged at a terrified crewman, its tongue lashing out like a barbed whip. It hit nothing. A golden lasso snapped around its neck mid-air and yanked it sideways. Diana spun, using its momentum, slamming it into its companions like a flail. The rope flared, binding not just flesh but the psychic pattern beneath. The demon shrieked as its essence got dragged closer to truth. "What are you?" Diana demanded, eyes narrowing. The lasso burned with demanding light. For a moment, through the warp distortion, she saw something. A battlefield paved in skulls, a throne of brass, a shadow like a mountain of muscle and hate. "I am the hate of..." She yanked hard. The thing unraveled, its declaration torn out of its mouth and scattered like smoke. "I do not care whose hate you are," she said. "You will not have this ship." The line surged forward again, mortal and immortal shoulder to shoulder. For a fleeting moment, the demons faltered. Out in the raw warp beyond the Geller field, something watched. Not a single mind, but a confluence of them. 4 great storms in the sea of unreality, each with its own flavor of hunger. For now, they were only vaguely aware, the way you might notice new insects drifting near your porch light. New shapes, new colors, new stories to twist. They watched the Justice League fight and they smiled. By the time the last breach was sealed and the last demon burned out of phase, the sanctity of wrath was bleeding from a dozen psychic wounds. Crew lay dead in pools of blood and melted reality. Prayer sheets fluttered in corridors where gravity had briefly forgotten which way was down. And everywhere the League had passed, a pattern was forming, invisible but real, a new idea in the minds of the survivors. They were not saints, they were not demons, they were something else, in the warp, that mattered. When the alarms finally died down to a steady, exhausted silence, the sanctity of wrath felt like a man who had just survived a heart attack and hadn't yet decided whether he was grateful. Damage control teams fanned out. Tech priests chanted repair catechisms to wounded machine spirits. Medici teams dragged the wounded to makeshift triage bays that had been shrines an hour earlier. The Justice League regrouped in a wide corridor not far from the generator shrine. They were covered in things that were not quite blood. Demon Ichor steamed on Superman's chest, refusing to obey mundane evaporation patterns. Hal's constructs flickered, showing flickers of strange geometries where Warp Claws had tried to rewrite them. Wonder Woman's shield bore new gouges that glowed faintly, as if reality hadn't finished deciding whether they existed. Flash leaned against a bulkhead that hummed with residual psychic energy. "On a scale of 1 to, this is a bad idea," he said. "How dumb was it that we punched reality's fever dream from the inside of another universe?" Cyborg wiped an arm across his face, smearing black-green ichor. "We didn't have a lot of other options." John said nothing. He stood very still, eyes closed, his mind floating a few millimeters above his body in ways that would break a human brain. He was listening. The warp was not quiet. Even with the Geller field stabilizing, it pressed against the ship like an ocean against a fragile glass bubble. Usually for psychers born in this universe, that pressure was a constant ache they learned to ignore or drown in prayer. For Joan, it was new music. It was awful music. Voices rose and fell in it, threads of meaning in the noise. Most were mindless, the howls of predatory entities, the echoing prayers of trillions of humans, the psychic exhaust of wars fought light years away, but some were focused. Attention had turned toward the sanctity of wrath. Curiosity flared, hunger sharpened, images swam through his perception, not as pictures but as symbolic impressions. A throne of skulls, slick with blood, looking down on a battlefield that never ended. Skulls for seats, skulls for steps, skulls for decoration. Every one of them had belonged to someone who had believed once that they mattered. Now they mattered only as decoration. In that storm, something like a face turned toward a single moment. Superman driving a demon into its own breach. Never seen one like that before. The impression growled, amused. Hits hard, bleeds funny. Another current in the warp did not speak in words, anchored to brass and bone. It was a swirling mass of sigils and changing shapes, a storm of schemes eating itself and regenerating. It regarded Batman of all of them. This mortal with no warp presence to speak of, who had nevertheless mapped the sanctity's internal layout in minutes, who had anticipated where the next breaches would open just by reading stress lines in the ship's structure and the enemy's moves. Interesting, said the sense of it. No gift, yet plays the game. Given the right nudge, he could be very useful. A third current smelled like rot and damp soil and the sweetness of fruit left too long in the sun. It did not look at any one of them in particular. It regarded the idea of them, bright, stubborn, refusing to break. They think they can fix things, it gurgled happily. They will tiredly pick up piece after piece. When they fail, they will despair. Despair is lovely. The fourth presence was harder to pin down. It moved like silk through a crowd, like fingertips tracing a spine. It took a longer look at Wonder Woman, at the way she had stared demons down without flinching, at the way her will had bent them, not to cruelty or frenzy, but to confession. So much passion, it cooed. So much beautiful tension. Honor versus need. Duty versus desire. If she ever breaks, she will sing so sweetly. John pulled back sharply, severing the more focused threads. Even not looking at those storms risked drawing them closer. He knew that much instinctively, but the warp had seen them now. It would not forget. Don't do that again, Batman said quietly, watching John's face. You looked like you were about to have a stroke. They are aware of us, John replied. The great powers that shape this sea, they are not omniscient, but they are curious. We are anomalies, new equations waiting to be solved. Great, Hal said. We've made it onto the radar of the universe's worst gods. That's awesome. They are not gods, Diana said sharply. Do not give them that dignity. Whatever they are, Cyborg added, their ocean leaks everywhere. I got glimpses of places that weren't here when the field flickered. Fleets burning, planets screaming, stuff that would give Apocalypse nightmares. Batman filed it away. Every piece of new information added a line to the model in his head. This place runs on thought as much as on matter, he said. Belief has weight. Stories have teeth. The more people believe something, the more it pushes back. He looked at Superman. Clark, you need to understand something. Back home, you're a symbol of hope that bends people upward. Here, if they decide you're a saint or a god, that belief feeds into the same warp that's trying to eat us. If they worship you wrong, you could become the thing you fight. Superman's expression tightened. I'm not a god. Tell that to a trench full of soldiers who just watched you punch a demon to death, Batman replied. In their stress-addled brains, that looked like a miracle, and this universe punishes miracles. Before Superman could answer, boots clanged on the deck. Stormtroopers formed a perimeter. Behind them, Inquisitor Varro approached, cloak still unruffled despite the ship's near-death experience. His armor bore new scorch marks. His rosette glinted in the emergency lighting. He looked at the scorched walls, the residue of demonic flesh, the League. You fight, he said, as if you have done this before. We fight to keep people alive, Superman replied. The scenery's new. The principle isn't. Varro studied him for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he bowed his head. Not deeply, not like a subject, but the bare minimum courtesy a commander offered another. "The sanctity of wrath remains whole," he said. "Barely. Without your intervention, the Geller field would likely have failed. We would now be a floating altar to the great enemy." "You're welcome," Flash muttered. "I do not thank lightly," Varro said, eyes flicking to Barry. "You have not earned trust, but you have earned utility." He let that hang in the air like a blade. "We are still," Batman said, "prisoners." Varro's mouth ticked. "Containment is temporarily relaxed. I would be a fool to shackle the only beings aboard who can wrestle a bloodletter and win, but understand we are still in the warp. Even at rest, this ship is a trench line on the front between reality and madness. I cannot afford idealism." "Funny," Hal said. "You don't sound like an idealist." "I serve humanity," Varro replied, "not its feelings." He inclined his head toward the corridor. "Come," he said. "We have much to discuss. You need to understand the war you have stumbled into, and I need to understand whether you are a weapon I can point at my enemies or a threat I must eventually erase once the immediate crisis passes." "Comforting," Cyborg murmured. As they walked, Joan lingered. He turned back just slightly, letting his awareness skim the warp again. Not to touch the storms, but to listen to the echoes left in their wake. Somewhere out there, cultists had felt the battle in their dreams, had seen silhouettes of capes and emerald light in their fevered visions. On half a dozen worlds, painters and madmen scratched new icons on basement walls. A man with a sun for a heart, a woman crowned with a lasso of light, a figure of green flame, most would mean nothing. In the 41st millennium, most nightmares went unmet, but a few would spread, a few would catch on, and the warp would be watching, delighted. Heroes, it thought, were just a different flavor of offering. The briefing chapel was as much a sanctuary as a classroom. Stained glass windows showed battles against demons. Saints wielding flaming swords, the Emperor looming in judgment over a galaxy on fire. Candles smoldered in sconces, their smoke curling into the shape of prayers. Benches lined the floor, most of them now occupied by officers, tech priests, and psychers who had survived the incursion. The Justice League stood at the front under a fresco of the Emperor standing on a pile of corpses. "Subtle," Hal muttered, glancing up. "This is how they teach," Batman said quietly. "Every wall, every symbol, reinforcing the same message. Survival through obedience, hope through submission. The enemy is everywhere." Diana's gaze lingered on the painted Emperor, an immortal ruler frozen in victory, fossilized authority. "I wonder," she said, "how long he has sat there, in truth." Inquisitor Varro stepped to a lectern that had once been a pulpit. "Men and women of the sanctity of wrath," he said, voice steady. "You have seen things today few mortals witness and survive. You have held the line in the warp's teeth. You have not broken. For that, you have my acknowledgement." A ripple of exhausted pride moved through the room. "You have also," Varro continued, "seen anomalies that defy our current codices. Entities from another reality, bearing powers that do not map cleanly onto our categories of psyker, mutant, abhuman, or xenos. Under different circumstances, I would have had them spaced without a second thought." A murmur. Eyes flicked toward the League. "But reality," Varro said, "has chosen to complicate our lives. They fought with us, against the same enemy. Their presence in the warp burns bright enough that even the ruinous powers turn their heads. We cannot pretend they do not exist." He turned, gesturing to the League. "Introduce yourselves," he said. "Not with titles, with functions. Humanity has no use for poetry." Superman stepped forward, cape brushing the cracked stone. "I'm called Superman," he said. "I'm from another universe. My world died. The people who raised me taught me to use what I can do to keep others from suffering the same fate. I can fly, I'm strong, I'm very hard to kill. I don't stop. Not if there's someone who needs help." To a guardsman in the third row, still shaking from the memory of watching him punch a demon in half, it sounded like the beginning of a saint's hagiography. To Varro, it sounded like an asset you could burn through multiple campaigns. "Diana of Themyscira," Wonder Woman said, stepping to his side. "Warrior, ambassador, I wield tools that bind truth and turn away harm. I believe justice without mercy is tyranny, and mercy without strength is meaningless." A chaplain flinched at the word truth, thinking of interrogations and purges. The lasso at her hip glowed faintly, making him sweat. "Hal Jordan," Hal said. "Green Lantern, this ring runs on willpower and imagination. I can make almost anything I can picture. Energy constructs, barriers, weapons, you name it. I'm a cop where I come from, space sector beat cop," he added. "Just not this sector." Several officers exchanged looks at the idea of policing that extended beyond their galaxy. "Barry Allen," Flash said, rubbing the back of his neck. I run fast, stupid fast. Time gets weird fast. Back home I solve crimes. Here I'm mostly doing crowd control on Hellspawn and pulling people out of explosions." "Victor Stone," said Cyborg. "Technopath. I talk to machines, your cogitators, auspecs, weapon systems. I can interface and optimize or shut them down if I have to. Also, I can blow up tanks with my arm. I prefer the IT side of things." Somewhere in the back, a junior tech priest made a strangled, possessive noise. "John Johns," Martian Manhunter said. "Telepath, shapeshifter. I read minds and can alter my form. I will not touch your thoughts without consent. This ship has enough fear in it already." There was a heavy pause after that. Varro broke. "Dutit. You have heard their capabilities," he said. "Now the reality, we are not safely home. We are still in the warp. Our astropaths whisper of storms in our path. There is a war growing in this sector. Orcs massing on the fringe, tyrannid splinters in the dark, chaos raiding patterns increasing." He gestured to a hololith that flickered to life beside him, showing the sector map. Dots of imperial worlds, spikes of warp storms, red zones marked with sigils of warning. "Normally," he said, "I would never consider deploying unbound anomalies like these on imperial soil. The risks of corruption, mutation, or simple unpredictability are too high. But the great enemy does not care about my preferences. It only cares that we die tired." He looked at Superman. "You want to help," he said. "You have seen a fraction of what threatens humanity. So here is my offer, such as it is. Fight where I point you. Save who you can. Learn what you must about this galaxy. In return, I will not declare you excommunicate traitorous the moment we reach port." Flash tilted his head. "We work for you. You don't kill us. That's the deal." "That is the beginning of the deal," Varro corrected. "Understand, I am not your commander. I am your handler. You are weapons on loan to a war you do not comprehend. Betray us, and I will burn you. Fail us, and the galaxy will do it for me." Batman stepped forward before anyone else could answer. "We'll fight," he said. "Not because you're pointing, because we've seen what's at stake, but we need information, full briefing, factions, enemies, limits. If we're going to survive long enough to matter, we can't be tourists." Varro regarded him with that unreadable, almost amusement. "You ask for much, for a man with no gifts," he said. "I have a gift," Batman replied. "I learn fast." Varro nodded once. Then listen well, detective, because this is the part no one back in your bright universe got right. In the 41st millennium, hope is a resource to be rationed. Mercy is a contagion. And heroes. He glanced at the fresco of the Emperor standing on his cairn of foes. Heroes are myths we tell the young so they march into unwinnable wars, he finished. You are different. You are not of us. You might do something worse than die. What's worse than dying? Hal asked. Changing things, Varro said softly. The warp loves change. Every new story becomes its food. If you inspire too much hope, you may create something terrible without meaning to. Superman looked at the assembled crew, at faces lined by war and faith and exhaustion. He thought of Metropolis, of people looking up at a sky that didn't shoot back. If the price of not trying, he said, is that this keeps going forever, then we're going to try anyway. We don't bend to fear. Not yours, not your emperor's, not these powers in the warp. The back of the chapel, someone inhaled sharply at the implied irreverence. Varro held his gaze for a long, long moment. Then let us see, he said, whether justice can walk in the 41st millennium without becoming one more god of the dead. As the briefing broke up, the ship's astropaths sank into their tanks again, reaching out to the future. They saw flickers, a green light over a burning world, a woman with a shield standing before a titan's foot, a man in black speaking with an inquisitor over a table full of star charts. And somewhere in the warp, 1,000 whispering things leaned in closer, eager for the next chapter of this new bright hypothesis. What happens when you throw heroes into a universe designed to break them? The galaxy did not know yet, but the warp was listening. The first Imperial world they saw up close looked almost beautiful from orbit. From the sanctity of Wrath's strategium, a hololith showed it as a sphere of clouds and ocean continents stitched with city lights. Compared to the hive carcass where they'd arrived, this one seemed gentler. Designation, Eostra, said Varro. Cardinal world, shrine world, agricultural adjuncts on the outer continents, population several billion, strategic value high, current condition compromised. Compromised how? Superman asked. The hololith zoomed in. The lights of a major continent flickered. Some city blocks burned steadily, their heat signatures blooming red. Others were dark where they should have glowed. Cult activity verified, Varro said. Administrative records falsified for decades. Arbites and local guard regiments infiltrated. Recent psychic reports indicate ritual preparations on a planetary scale. He turned, looking at them over steepled fingers. Ordinarily, he said, the solution would be straightforward. Exterminatus. Destroy the planet, Diana said flatly. Cleanse it, Varro corrected. Leave only ash and silence for the ruinous powers to feed on. But there are still billions of loyal souls down there, mixed among the rot. The Ecclesiarchy has petitioned to delay annihilation until we can extract certain relics and personnel. And you, Batman said, want a third option, or at least want to test if one exists now that we're here. Varro's lip twitched. Your arrogance is as irritating as it is occasionally useful. He gestured to different sectors on the globe. My parameters: we must break the cult infrastructure, prevent any major ritual from completing, and reassert Imperial authority in the main hives and shrines. If we fail, the planet dies. If we succeed, the Ecclesiarchs get a miracle and I get to postpone genocide. Superman stared at the blue-white arc of the world. And if what you call reasserting authority means going back to the same conditions that allowed this rot? He asked quietly. The same oppression, corruption, fear? Varro shrugged, a slow, armored movement. That, he said, is not my mandate. I am not a social architect, I am a knife. Maybe that's the problem, Clark said. Diana laid a hand on his arm. One battle at a time, she murmured. First, stop the ritual. Then we see how much of the rest can be changed before they turn their guns on us. Varro turned to the hololith and began assigning vectors. Superman, Wonder Woman, you will deploy to the primary shrine city of St. Yos. If there is a ritual, it will reach its apex there. You have my authority to neutralize any priest, noble, or guardsman actively abetting the cults. He shifted the projection to a coastal hive wreathed in smog. Batman, Flash, you will insert into Hive Molter. Data suggests the administratum there has been rewriting tithe records and psyker manifests. Identify the network, cut its head off, quietly. Flash grimaced. You want stealth? You send the guy whose whole brand is lightning bolt. Love that for me. You are capable of moving faster than the eye, Varro said. Use it. The detective will tell you where to run. He pointed to a high-orbit station and a series of outlying islands marked with Mechanicus sigils. Cyborg, Lantern. The Adeptus Mechanicus have auger arrays and defense platforms here. Their data will be essential. Their insularity will be an obstacle. Persuade them to cooperate, by whatever means you deem least catastrophic. Cyborg blew out a slow breath. So, tech diplomacy with religious cyborgs who think I'm a walking heresy. Easy. Hal cracked his knuckles. Worst case, I draw better graphs than they do. And you? John asked. Varro tapped 3 points at once. The primary astropathic choir, a cluster of refugee camps outside one hive, and a guard command bunker. You will do what you do best, Martian, he said. Listen, tell me which way the wind is blowing. We will coordinate insertion from the sanctity until we are satisfied the immediate threat is contained. The warp's storms thinned around them as the ship slid back into real space. Eostra grew in the viewport, its cloud bands and ocean sheen filling the stars. Superman watched it and felt something he had not felt since the day Krypton died. The sense that a world was about to be judged. Last chance to change your mind, Batman said quietly beside him. You heard him. Even if we pull this off, the baseline state here is still authoritarian, still fanatical. We're not going to fix that in a week. We weren't going to fix Earth in a week either, Clark replied. We still tried. We made it better. That's what we do. Batman nodded once. He had expected that answer. The fact that it still reassured him bothered him more than he'd admit. The dropships of the Imperium were brutalist wedges of metal and engines. They roared through atmosphere like meteors learning discipline. The Justice League rode in 3 of them, each accompanied by squads of stormtroopers and guardsmen who pretended not to stare. In Superman and Diana's craft, a priest clutched a reliquary and glared at them over the lip of a battered hymnal. You will not question the faith of the people, he said suddenly, as if he'd rehearsed the line all his life. You will not disrupt sanctioned rites. If there is heresy, it will be excised by ordained hands. If your sanctioned rites are feeding this corruption, Diana said, they will be disrupted. The priest's knuckles whitened on the reliquary. You speak as if you know the will of the Emperor. I know the shape of tyranny, she replied. It looks the same in every world. In Batman and Flash's shuttle, the mood was more brittle. So, Barry said, jittering one foot, plan is, we land without getting shot by the people we're supposed to be helping, sneak into a hive-run bureaucracy that's allergic to honesty, and find the chaos cult without starting a panic. Easy. First rule, Batman said, no costumes in the open unless absolutely necessary. You're a blurred face, not a brand. The more anonymous we are, the less likely this turns into a crusade in our name. Barry looked down at his suit, then at the drab, flak armor-esque overcoat Batman had pushed into his hands. Covert ops, huh? He said. Do I at least get a cool code name? You already have one. The Flash is not covert, Bruce. Batman didn't answer. The corner of his mouth might have moved. Cyborg and Hal rode with the detachment of tech priests, all red robes and chanting vocoder prayers. The air stank of incense and machine oil. "This reminds me of high school robotics club," Victor muttered. "If the club worshipped the 3D printer." One of the tech priests turned a lens toward him. "Unregistered cybernetic organism," it intoned. "Presence aboard Mechanicus asset is anomalous. Ensuring compliance with Litany 9, thou shalt not suffer an unsanctioned circuit to persist." Hal's ring flared just a little. "Relax, Toaster Man," Hal said. "We're here to help." "Toaster Man?" Victor whispered. "We talked about not antagonizing the religious murder techs. If they can't handle banter, they're not serious about science," Hal replied. All three dropships burned toward the same wounded world, their trajectories splitting only in the last moments. As atmosphere clawed at their hulls and the planet's gravity reached up to claim them, each member of the League felt the weight of what they were about to try. They weren't just saving people from monsters. They were about to see whether justice meant anything in a system calibrated for survival at any cost. Hive Moltier did not welcome them. It loomed from the smog like a mountain built by people who had never seen a mountain. Spires stabbed at the low clouds, their sides encrusted with hab blocks, manufactoria, and rusted scaffolds. Pilgrim processions wound along exterior causeways, tiny as ants on a tombstone. The dropship carrying Batman and Flash skimmed along the Hive's side, then knifed into an intake aperture big enough to swallow a skyscraper. Air howled past in choking gusts. Below, a chasm plunged into darkness lit by strip lights and exhaust flares. "Subtle landing," Barry said, gripping a handhold. "This is subtle for them," Batman replied. "No orbital bombardment, no exterminators, they're practically whispering." They disembarked in a grim loading bay where administratum clerks and Arbeits officers waited. A banner bearing the Aquila and the sigil of the Inquisition hung crookedly over a makeshift checkpoint. A gaunt man in a flak greatcoat stepped forward, thin mouth pinched. "Interrogator Haldren," he said, saluting with the stiffness of someone who thought too much about the angle of his arm. "By inquisitorial mandate, this hive is under investigation for tithe, fraud, and heresy. You are the specialists?" "Something like that," Batman said. He ditched most of the cape and armor, keeping only what he could hide under a heavy coat. To the untrained eye, he looked like another off-world operative. Too clean, too composed, not yet coated in Hive's permanent grime. Barry had gone one step further, a dull gray bodysuit under a coat and a scarf covering most of his face. Only his eyes gave him away. They never quite stayed focused on one thing. Haldren eyed them with thinly veiled suspicion. "The Inquisitor's message said you'd require access to our records and surveillance feeds," he said. "You understand those are sacred. The numbers themselves are prayer. Miscounting is sin." "Your sin ledger can wait," Batman said. "What we need is simple. Total tithe output for the last 20 years. Psyker screening logs, troop movement orders, promethium and munitions intake and distribution. Uncensored." Haldren flinched like he'd been slapped. "That," he began, "that is impossible. Those volumes fill entire scriptoria. Some are written on vellum that must not be touched without glove and blessing. Many are redacted by higher authority. We lack the staff to—" Barry cleared his throat. "Hey," he said. "Got a cogitator room? Primitive? Advanced? Doesn't matter. If it stores data, we can work with it." Haldren frowned. "We have central archives, yes, but they are—" "Take us there," Batman said. "Flash, once we're in, we brute force it. You're going to be my copier, courier, and pattern spotter." "Now you're speaking my language," Barry said. The Central Archive was a cavernous hall where paper and machine met in an uneasy compromise. Racks of punched data cards stood alongside cogitator banks the size of houses. Scribes hurried back and forth with armfuls of parchment scrolls. Incense burners tried and failed to mask the smell of dust and sweat. Haldren gestured as if unveiling a cathedral. "Behold," he said, "the memory of Hive Molter." Batman didn't behold. He broke it into vectors in his mind. 2 layers of security, he said under his breath. The official data the administratum thinks it owns, and the unofficial channels everyone actually uses because the official ones are too slow. We need both. He turned to Barry. "Here's how this works. You'll phase through physical filing faster than they can track, snapshot contents, and dump them into a local map I'm constructing. No touching anything that looks like a purity seal or a booby-trapped page. Those might be literal hexes. Understand?" "Got it," Barry said. "Read fast. Don't get cursed. Easy. You could have just said no red buttons." "And keep an eye out for coincidence," Batman added. "Guard deployments lining up a little too well with cult outbreaks. Missing psychers whose names keep almost repeating. Patterns just under the noise." Barry already wasn't there anymore. To the onlookers, he became a gust of stale air and a breeze of scattered parchment. To himself, the world slowed to a crawl. Letters on pages stretched, smearing into lines as he flipped past them. But his perception snapped still frames out of the blur and filed them according to the map in his head. Names, numbers, dates. Tithes increased beyond sustainable levels, then suddenly dropped, but only on paper. A psyker census that claimed near zero births in a decade where the background mutation rate should have risen. A series of shipments rerouted through the same warehouse overseer whose name appeared on donations to several shrine restorations. Barry reappeared at Batman's shoulder minutes later, heart pounding with more than exertion. "Okay," he said. "Got a candidate. Administratum factor named Voss Laren. Been cooking books for at least 15 years, everything funneled through his office. Oh, and he just happened to be promoted right after a previous investigator died in a manufactorum accident." Batman's eyes flicked as he integrated the data. "Any cross-link with the Ecclesiarchy?" he asked. "Yeah. There's a minor cardinal whose pet projects keep getting mysteriously funded despite poverty in his district. Guess whose accountant he uses?" Batman smiled without humor. "Send me the address," he said. "We'll pay Mr. Laren a visit." Haldren hovered nearby, suspicion mounting. "You moved very fast for beings with no visible augmetics," he said carefully. "And you seem to have found in minutes what we failed to isolate in months." "That's what we do," Barry said lightly. "We specialize in bad news." Haldren swallowed. "And what will you do when you find it?" Batman looked up at the vast, ink-stained ceiling. "We cut out the infection," he said. "Quietly if we can, loudly if we have to." Meanwhile, on the surface of Eostra, Superman and Wonder Woman walked through a different kind of battlefield. The shrine city of St. Eos rose around them in tiers of white stone streaked with soot. Pilgrims knelt in courtyards, kissing worn steps. Statues of saints loomed from alcoves, their stone eyes turned toward the sky. From the highest spire, bells tolled the hour with ponderous gravity. At street level, the smell was incense and sweat and the metallic tang of crowd control. Lines of Arbites in black carapace armor watched intersections with shock mauls ready. Servo skulls drifted overhead, their auspex arrays tracking the flow of bodies. "This place reeks of fear and devotion," Diana murmured. "The way blood and wine smell the same if you close your eyes." They were flanked by a small squad of stormtroopers, their presence as much to reassure the local authorities as to protect the League. At the head of the procession walked a senior confessor, his staff crowned with a miniature gallows. "You will not interfere with liturgies in the central basilica," he said. "My flock is restless. Rumors of heresy have already shaken their faith. If you show your—" He searched for a word. "Tricks during Mass. You may incite a riot." Superman glanced at him. "If a riot is what it takes to flush the cults out," he said, "we'll handle it. But we'd prefer not to scare anyone we don't have to." "That is not how faith works," the confessor snapped. "The flock must fear. It is the only thing that keeps them from sin." Diana's eyes hardened. "Where I come from," she said, "the only sheep who stayed were the ones the wolves didn't notice yet." The confessor made a sign of warding and increased his pace. As they neared the basilica, Superman heard it, a low thrum beneath the sound of chanting, not vocal, not mechanical, a psychic resonance, like a tuning fork vibrating in his bones. "John," he murmured into the link, "are you getting this?" "Yes," came the Martian's voice, distant and strained. "Under the main altar, something is being built, not physically, in thought." "A ritual," Diana said. She rested a hand on the hilt of her sword and looked up at the cathedral's soaring facade. Angels carved in stone looked back, their faces serene. "If they intend to summon something here, in the heart of their faith," she said, "then the wound in this world is not just in its rulers, it is in its gods." Superman thought of the briefing, of Exterminatus hanging over this planet like a raised hammer. "Then we stop it," he said, "whatever it takes, and when it's over we decide whether we can leave this place as we found it." He looked at the crowds, at the priests, at the young acolytes sweeping steps already stained by imagined blood. "Because I'm not sure," he whispered, "that we should." The orbital station over Eostra was a ring of steel and skulls. Cyborg and Green Lantern stepped out of the airlock into a world of chanting servo arms and red-robed figures who moved like a single organism with many limbs. The void beyond the thick armor glass was filled with the glitter of defense satellites and sensor arrays, all wired together in a web of brass and prayer scripts. "Welcome," intoned Magos Hellion 9, his voice coming from a grill where his mouth ought to have been, "to the eye of blessed Eostra. Its machine spirit is displeased by intrusion." "Yeah, well," Hal said, "it's going to have to get used to it." Victor cleared his throat. "We're here under Inquisitorial authority," he said. "We need full access to your Augur archives, external and internal. Everything you have on suborbital traffic, astropathic anomalies, encryption bursts in system." Hellion 9's lenses whirred as they focused on Victor's cybernetics. "You are aberrant," the Magos said. "Flesh improperly married to machine. No visible input ports, no obvious power source, unvetted architecture. You are a blasphemy that happens to resemble a sibling. Fascinating." "I get that a lot," Victor said. "Look, we can stand here trading insults, or we can stop whatever's trying to eat your shrine world from the inside. Your call." The Magos hesitated. Underneath the robes and metal, he was still human enough to feel fear. He'd felt the warp surge when the sanctity had almost died. He'd heard the Vox traffic from the front lines. Something was moving in Eostra's shadows, and his beloved machines were nervous. "Access will be granted," he said slowly. "Under oversight. You will not infect our systems with your unsanctioned code." "I'll keep my heretical hands to myself," Victor said. "Mostly." He jacked into a local cogitator bank with a cable that unfolded from his arm. The machine's spirit flinched, a tremor of binary and static, but then settled as Victor's consciousness enveloped it in familiar shapes. "Easy, big guy," he murmured. "I speak your language, just with less screaming." Data poured into him, Sensor sweeps of the planet, records of inbound and outbound vessels, anomalies tagged and then filed away by overworked adepts. Hal floated nearby, arms crossed, ring casting a soft green glow. "Find anything labeled weird thing I didn't want to think about," he said. "That's usually where the good stuff hides." "Funny you say that," Victor replied. Patterns emerged, ships that had docked without full inspection, ghost signals that had appeared just long enough to relay a burst and then vanished. A mysterious reduction in micrometeor impacts over one particular region of the upper atmosphere, as if something had been deflecting them. Victor highlighted the coordinates and shared them across the League's link. "Right above St. Eos," he said. "Somebody put a cloak up there. Something that bends probabilities just enough that rocks and stray debris don't hit the basilica, or that vox blips don't register at full strength. It's subtle, but it's there." "Chaos ritual?" Hal asked. "Could be," Victor said. "Could also be something more mechanical, a device acting like a charm." He dug deeper, tracing maintenance logs. There it was. A scheduled Mechanicus inspection of a structural reinforcement array in low orbit above the city, scheduled for half a year ago, and then canceled without explanation. "Helion 9, Victor said, turning toward the Magos. "Who signed off on maintenance cancellations for orbital substructures over St. Eos?" The Magos stiffened. "Such information is classified," he began. Victor piped the authorization code Varro had given him straight into the station's systems. Sigils of authority lit up on a nearby console. "Not anymore," Victor said. A name scrolled into view. Magos Auxilia Terrain 4. Status: missing. Last recorded location: St. Eos, Sub-Basilica Vaults. "I'm starting to see a theme," Hal said. "Corrupt priests, corrupt admin, missing tech priests." "If I were Chaos and I wanted to hijack a planet's soul, I'd start by buying the infrastructure." "Send it to Clark and Diana," Victor said. "Tell them to look for a Mechanicus imprint near the altar. If the ritual has hardware, we might be able to shut it down from up here instead of trying to fight it purely on the belief layer." Hal nodded, ring pulse already carrying the message. "And you?" Helion 9 asked. "What will you do with this data once your mission is complete? Disseminate it to rivals, spread doubt, corrupt our trust in the Omnissiah's plan?" Victor looked at the web of steel and signals around them. "I'm going to make sure your world doesn't get glassed from orbit," he said. "And maybe if we're very lucky, I'm going to teach some of you that trust and ignorance aren't synonyms." Helion 9's lenses narrowed. "You speak heresy," he said. Victor smiled tiredly. "Where I'm from," he said, "we called it engineering." While they negotiated with machines and zealots, John walked among ghosts. He had chosen the refugee camps outside Hive Moltir as his ground. Thousands had fled here from outlying districts when rumors of purge and cult raids spread. They huddled in makeshift tents under tarps of stitched plasteel and cloth, around fires that smoked more than they warmed. To most of them, John looked like just another off-world priest in a borrowed robe. Only the children noticed that his eyes were too old. He moved through the camp without speaking aloud, brushing lightly against minds. He tasted fear, resentment, exhaustion. Underneath that, he tasted something else, a story being told and retold in frightened whispers. "Did you hear? In the lower Habs, a man in red and blue fell from the sky and broke a demon with his bare hands. They say a woman with a shining rope made a monster confess its sins, and then it turned to smoke. My cousin's regiment was almost overrun before a green wall sprang up out of nowhere. The shells bounced off it like peas. He ran through the fire," a child thought, eyes wide. The red one. He took my brother out of the flames and put him down with his hair still smoking, and then he was gone. These weren't prayers, not yet. They were anecdotes, survival stories, but in the warp, John knew the line between true story and holy text was dangerously thin. He sat down beside a woman who'd lost 2 children to conscription and 1 to disease. Her thoughts were a slow river of grief. "You have seen new warriors," he said softly into her mind. "From the sky." She startled, the movement almost invisible. Her gaze shifted to him, wary. "Everyone says so," she whispered aloud. "I was not there, I only see the aftermath. Fewer bodies in the carts, some days strange colors in the sky." "How does that make you feel?" he asked. She laughed bitterly. "Guilty," she said. "Hope is a sin when your neighbors are starving. If I smile because someone else's sons lived, someone will ask why I smiled, whether I know something, whether I am with the heretics." Her thoughts trembled on a knife edge between despair and the last tattered rags of belief. "They are not saints," John said gently. "They are, like you, lost, trying." "That sounds like a saint to me," she murmured. John looked up. The warp pressed down like a storm cloud over the camp, heavy with listening. He could not stop these stories from forming. He could only try to shape their edges, soften the dangerous angles. "Tell this story instead," he suggested, nudging the thought like one might redirect a river. "Tell them that new fighters have come from somewhere else, that they are strong but not invincible, that they bleed when they are cut and break when they fall, that they are not gods." "Why?" she asked. "Because God's here," he said quietly. "Do not save you. They eat you." Somewhere above, the bells of St. Eos tolled again, their sound rolling across a world on trial. In the basilica's depths, Superman and Wonder Woman moved through caverns that smelled of oil and old blood. In hive offices piled with paper lies, Batman and Flash stalked a bureaucrat who had sold his world piece by piece. In orbit, Cyborg rewrote code written in incense and fear, while Hal held a council of guns at bay with grinning constructs. Across all of it, the warp watched. It approved. This was going to be interesting. The Basilica of St. Eos was built to impress the idea of smallness into anyone who entered. Superman and Wonder Woman walked under arches high enough to hide gunships. Pillars like stone titans held up a ceiling painted with the Emperor's victories in colors that never quite faded, no matter how many candles smoked beneath them. A river of pilgrims flowed toward the main altar, clutching votive skulls and relic badges. The sound was a constant murmur, prayers, shuffling boots, the crackle of incense braziers. Underneath it all, beneath the hymns and whispers, Superman heard the other tone again, the low, steady thrum of something not quite physical. The confessor at their side was still talking. "Your presence within the nave is already a concession," he hissed. "If the flock sees your aberrations, it may confuse them. They are simple people. They do not understand the difference between miracle and heresy. That is for us to decide." "Some of us learned the difference the hard way," Diana said. "We fought gods who called themselves saviors. We watched mortals bleed for their glory. It looks a lot like what you call flock management." The confessor's face tightened, but he said no more. Ahead, the nave opened into a vast space lit by stained glass and rows of flickering candles. At the far end, the high altar rose in tiers of marble and gold. Above it, a colossal statue of the Emperor sat enthroned, sword in one hand, the galaxy in the other. The murmur deepened into a chant. Hundreds of robed clerics lined the steps, voices blending into a wall of sound. The ritual had begun long before the League arrived. It had been building for years in whispered prayers and carefully edited homilies. Now it was peaking. Joan's voice brushed their minds, thin with strain. Under the altar, there is a device, a mechanicus construct woven into the reliquary. It is tuning the faith in this room, focusing it like a lens. "Victor?" Superman murmured. "Got it," Vic answered over the link. "I'm seeing a power spike from something buried under the basilica. It's feeding on psychic flux from the congregation. That missing Magos? He probably helped build the world's biggest warp antenna." Diana's hand tightened on the lasso. If they bend this much belief toward the warp, she thought, what answers them may not be what they think. They moved forward through the crowd, careful not to shove. Pilgrims drew back instinctively, eyes widening at the sight of armor that wasn't imperial, capes that weren't banners. Some made signs of warding. Others reached out to touch their cloaks as if a brush with the unknown might cure something the Emperor had overlooked. Up on the altar, the Cardinal of St. Yos lifted his arms. His vestments were heavy with gold thread and purity seals. His face shone with sweat and ecstasy. "Children of the throne," he cried, "today we offer our devotion not as scattered sparks, but as one flame. Today our faith will blaze so bright that even the darkest corners of the immaterium will feel its heat." The crowd roared. The psychic thrum grew louder. Superman's jaw tightened. "John," he said silently, "what's the warp making of this?" The Martian's reply came with a shiver. "It is pleased. This ritual is not summoning a demon in the crude sense. It is shaping a concept in the warp. They are trying to forge a saint out of fear and obedience. Something that will wear imperial colors and speak with a human voice, but underneath." He let the thought trail off. They all felt the implication. An anti-hero, a warp-born figure of mercy that justified anything. The floor trembled. Diana's eyes flicked toward the altar base. Faint lines of red light seeped from cracks between the stones like lava under skin. She could feel the pull on her own thoughts, a gravity of belief that wanted to drag her into the chant. "This stops now," she said. Superman nodded once. They leapt. The space between pews vanished under their feet. One moment they were in the crowd. The next they were on the lower steps of the altar, between the tiers of chanting clergy. Robed figures stumbled back, cries of shock and outrage cutting through the litany. "Blasphemy!" someone screamed. "Heretic Xenos!" Superman raised his voice, amplifying it just enough to cut clean through the chaos. "Everyone away from the altar," he shouted. "Now the ritual you're feeding is not what you think. You're pouring yourselves into something that will eat you." For a heartbeat, the crowd wavered. A few faltered. Many did not. The Cardinal's face contorted. For a moment it was rage, pure and human. Then something oily slid behind his eyes. "You see?" he cried, voice suddenly doubling, harmonizing with itself. "The enemy fears our devotion. It sends false angels to distract us, creatures of alien birth and false hope." The red light at the altar's base flared. Diana felt it, a surge of warp breeze, hot and foul, blowing through the nave. The pilgrims didn't notice it. They thought it was the Holy Spirit. "John," she snapped, "can you break their focus?" "Not from here," he said. "Too many minds in lockstep. If I push too hard, I risk shattering more than the ritual." "From orbit," Victor cut in. "I can maybe knock the hardware loose. I've got a targeting solution on whatever's down there. It looks like a lattice of phase-linked coils around a relic vault. If Hal can give me a tight beam opening, I can fry the thing without dropping the ceiling on your heads." "Lantern?" Superman asked. Hal's voice, a notch tighter than usual, already moving. "I'm going to have to slip something through a lot of stone and sacred bad architecture. Hold them off up top." Clerics rushed the steps, some brandishing staves, others drawing hidden pistols. Arbites near the side aisles began pushing through the crowd, weapons raised. Diana stepped in front of them, shield up, lasso uncoiling in her other hand. "Enough," she said. The first wave broke on her like surf on rock. Shock mauls bounced off her bracers, bullets flattened and fell. She moved with practiced precision, striking to disarm, to break wrists instead of necks. Behind her, Superman caught shock maul strikes and tossed men aside like rag dolls, careful not to crush. He hated this, hated hitting people who were victims of their own world, but every second they spent being gentle kept the ritual humming. The Cardinal kept chanting, voice splitting and fracturing into harmonies that came from no human throat. The red light at his feet crawled up his vestments like living fire. "Victor," Superman grunted, catching a thrown sensor and crumpling it like foil. "We're running out of time." "Working on it," Vic said. "Almost there. Hal, I need that tunnel 5 meters left, 3 down." In orbit, Green Lantern hung in space above Eostra, ring blazing. The planet's curvature filled half his view. The basilica was a bright dot on a continent-sized diagram. Okay, Hal muttered. "Thread the needle through a cathedral. No pressure." He shaped a construct like a spear, long and thin, its point flickering with contained energy, a coaxial channel, not a weapon in itself. "Ring," he said. "Lock onto Cyborg's coordinates. Give me a straight shot from here to there, no collateral." The ring chimed, reality bent, and a green-lined path burned through the clouds. "Victor, tunnel's live," Hal said. "Send the lightning." Vic didn't pull power from the station's guns. That would be too obvious, too crude. He hijacked micro-adjustments in the orbital grid, rerouted bleed energy from shield harmonics, tied it all together in a single vicious pulse. He fired. In the basilica, the world hiccuped. A thin beam of white-blue light, barely visible, lanced from nowhere into the heart of the altar. Stone cracked. Gold sigils flared and went dark. The floor shook as something underneath screamed in machine code. The Cardinal staggered mid-chant. The red glow around his feet sputtered. For a moment, the crowd's mental focus slipped. Confusion rippled through the nave. John seized the opening. He did not try to break their faith. That would be impossible and cruel. Instead, he whispered a single new idea into the exhausted, frightened minds packed into the basilica. "Stand back." It wasn't a command, just a suggestion wrapped in the flavor of self-preservation. Dozens of people took an involuntary step away from the altar. Dozens more followed, herd instinct kicking in. The ritual wobbled. The warp pushed harder. Something tried to surge up through the cracked altar, a shape half-formed from light and iconography. It was not a demon in the traditional sense. It was a mirage of the Emperor, too tall, too bright. Eyes hollow, mouth smiling. Diana's lasso snapped around it. The rope blazed like a captured sun, encircling the not-quite figure. "What are you?" she demanded, voice ringing in the vaults. The thing flickered, struggling between forms. For a heartbeat, it looked like the Emperor. For another, it looked like a man in a red cape. "I am what they need," it crooned. "I am what they fear. I am the shape their prayers make when they dream of someone who will burn the unclean and leave the obedient unharmed." The lasso tightened. Diana pulled. "No," she said. "You are the thing that will tell them any atrocity is fine as long as they call it justice." The figure tore like paper in fire. It collapsed into a wave of psychic feedback that washed over the basilica. Pilgrims screamed and fell to their knees, candles guttered, stained glass cracked. The warp recoiled, cheated of a new avatar. Down in the vault, the Mechanicus lattice burned out and died, coils fusing into slag around a reliquary that had never asked to be part of this. Above, the Cardinal sagged, eyes rolling back. The oily presence behind them withdrew with a hiss. For a heartbeat, everything in the basilica was very, very quiet. Then slowly, people began to breathe again. Superman looked up at the cracked statue of the Emperor. then down at the dazed faithful. "We stopped the worst of it," he said softly to Diana, "but we didn't fix the cause." "No," she replied. "That will take more than one broken ritual." On the other side of the planet, Batman stood in a filthy office, one gloved hand pinning Vos Loren's head to a ledger-strewn desk. Behind them, Arbits dragged out boxes of records and data slates. Interrogator Haldren watched with pale, sick fury as the extent of the hive's corruption revealed itself. "You sold them," Batman said quietly, leaning close enough that Vos could feel his breath. "You shaved tithes and psyker manifests, rerouted supplies, wrote false clean bills for ships loaded with cultists. How many died because you wanted a bigger shrine and a warmer coat?" Vos Loren sobbed into the paper. He choked. "I only gave them what they demanded. The system was already rotten. I was just..." Barry appeared in the doorway, face grim. "Bruce," he said, "got word from John and the others they stopped some kind of psychic nuke in the Basilica. But Varro's on the Vox. He wants a status report and he sounds like he's already decided something." Batman straightened, eyes suddenly very tired. "Put him through," he said. Varro's voice crackled over the office's rusty Vox unit. "Detective," he said. "Status?" "We've got your proof," Batman replied. "Administratum factor running a long-term scam tied to cult logistics. Ecclesiarchy branch complicit. Mechanicus auxiliary compromised. The infection's not localized. It's woven into how this world operates." "Can it be excised?" Varro asked. Batman glanced around at the walls of files, the spiderweb of complicity. "Not cleanly," he said. "You can cut heads off. Others will grow back. The structure rewards the behavior you call heresy when the icons are in the wrong place." There was a pause. "Understood," Varro said. "Meet me in orbit once your tasks are complete. We have a decision to make about Eostra." The line went dead. Barry exhaled. "I hate that tone," he said. "That's we talk about how many we have to kill tone." Batman looked down at Vos Loren, still weeping. "We were always going to have that conversation," he said. "The question is whether we change the answer." The war room aboard the Sanctity of Wrath was quieter this time. The hololith showed Eostra in cross-section. Lines of red marked discovered cult nodes, the sub-basilica vault, Vos Loren's network, shrines where doctrine had been subtly twisted. Dozens of points glowed. Diana's jaw clenched as she counted them. "These are only the ones we found in a few days," she said. "You don't get this much rot without the roots going deep." Cyborg highlighted another layer. Areas of high psychic resonance, refugee camps where stories about the angels from the sky were spreading. Units of guard whose survival against impossible odds had already become distorted in the retelling. "We damped the ritual," he said. "Shut down the hardware, broke the avatar before it fully formed. But the story got out anyway. People saw you two take the altar, saw Hal's light in the sky. Those memories aren't going away." "Nor should they," Superman said quietly. Batman didn't look away from the projection. "They will mutate," he said. "That's what stories do. Add the warp and it gets worse. We can't stop people from talking. We can only try to control the shape of the myth before it gets hijacked." Varro stood at the edge of the display, hands behind his back. "I do not care," he said, "what songs they sing about you in their cups. I care what this looks like on the level that matters. Risk, contagion, strategic viability." He tapped a rune. Another layer appeared, a translucent sphere encompassing the world. "This is the contamination radius," he said. "Not physical, psychic. The amount of warp attention this ritual has drawn, even interrupted, is significant. Iostra now glows more brightly than it should. That makes it a beacon. To what? Flash asked. To every hungry thing in the immaterium, Varro said. Demons, chaos gods, rogue psychers looking for leverage. You have denied them their first prize, they will look for a second, and a third. As long as this world churns with fear and half-remembered miracles, it will be tempting. The unspoken word hung there, exterminatus. Superman stared at the sphere, at the billions of lights that represented lives. You're telling me, he said slowly, that because these people were manipulated into a ritual, you're going to erase them. I am telling you, Varro replied, that we are weighing the lives of these billions against countless more in surrounding systems if Iostra becomes a staging ground for a greater incursion. The calculus is ugly. It is also familiar. There has to be an alternative, Diana said. There always has to be an alternative, Hal added. Otherwise, we're just another set of boots in the grinder. Varro studied them. You have done what no Imperial force could, he said. You cut the head off a multi-armed cult network in days instead of years. You disrupted a planetary-scale ritual. That buys us space, but question remains. Is the underlying cultural infection manageable, or is this world a lost cause? Manageable how? Batman asked. Varro flicked to another projection. Guard deployments, Ecclesiarchy influence zones, Mechanicus enclaves. Purge the most compromised hives, he said. Root out and execute proven heretics. Flood the rest with confessors and commissars. Increase tithe demands to fund more thorough investigations. Turn Iostra into a case study in vigilance. You mean terrorize survivors into even more obedience, Diana said. Teach them that the price of being tricked is more chains. That is one way of describing it, Varro said. Another is, remind the population that the Emperor is watching. Fear is a firewall against chaos, imperfect but functional. Superman's fists clenched. Fear is also a firewall against compassion, he said, against change. We've seen what this level of oppression breeds, resentment, desperation. That's how the cult got in. We do not have your luxury of gentle solutions, Varro replied. Our enemies eat our souls when we fail. We cannot afford experiments that may take generations to show results. Batman cleared his throat. There is a middle option, he said. Varro looked at him. I am listening, he said. Batman gestured at the highlighted cult nodes. We know where the worst pockets are, he said. The hives where the network was densest. The shrines where doctrine was most twisted. The Mechanicus vaults with direct warp leakage. You don't need to scorch the whole world, you need to cut out specific organs. You are suggesting, Varro began. Targeted orbital strikes, Batman said. Smaller than exterminatus, bigger than conventional bombardment. Use the station's arrays Victor reconfigured. Hal shapes their impact zones with constructs. Diana and Clark lead evacuation corridors up to the last second. Barry clears as many out as physics allows. Joan manages panic, keeps it from becoming a psychic bonfire. And the ones we can't save? Flash asked quietly. Batman looked down. We can't save everyone, he said. Not here, not in time, but we can change the ratio. Varro's gaze flicked between them. This is still extermination, he said. On a smaller scale, millions will die. Millions are dying every day, Hal snapped, surprising even himself. You're already losing them. This way we at least pick who goes instead of letting chaos roll dice. Superman rubbed a hand over his face. We're really arguing about how many we kill on purpose, he said. That's where we are. Diana laid a hand on his shoulder. "We were never going to come here and keep our hands clean," she said softly. "The question was always whether we'd let someone else make these choices alone." Varro watched them. The arguments, the hesitation, the refusal to accept the frame without pushing at its edges. All of it was data. "We will proceed with the targeted strikes," he said at last, "on one condition." They looked at him. "You choose the first target," he said. "You pull the trigger. Not me, not my captains. If you want to change this calculus, you must be willing to own it." Silence. In the warp, faintly a storm chuckled. Superman stepped closer to the hololith. The red nodes glowed like infected wounds. He pointed to the hive where Vos Loren's network had been thickest. Administratum, Ecclesiarchy, Mechanicus all intertwined. The infection's heart. "Here," he said. "We start here." Varro inclined his head. "So noted," he said. Preparations moved faster than anyone wanted. In orbit, Mechanicus crews loaded special munitions into launch tubes. Not life eaters, not planetary killers, but warheads fat enough to turn districts into glass. Cyborg oversaw their targeting codes, layering in micro-adjustments to minimize collateral spread. Hal sketched containment nets in Emerald, practice passes that would blunt shockwaves and redirect debris. On the planet, Arbites and guard units, those not compromised, received orders they had never heard before, to evacuate sectors instead of hold them. Confessors preached emergency sermons about the Emperor's purifying fire and a chance to prove obedience through survival. Barry ran himself ragged, shuttling between corridors of frightened civilians, barking orders, grabbing the slow and dragging them along. Diana stood in the streets in full armor, a beacon of impossible calm, shouting directions and pushing back against mob panic with sheer presence. John floated above the hive, his mind stretching wide. He muffled the sharpest edges of terror, smoothed spikes of rage into duller fear. It wasn't mind control, it was triage, keeping a million individual flares of emotion from congealing into a warp beacon. Superman moved between all of it, lifting collapsed hab blocks, catching falling transports, arguing with officers who wanted to seal gates and save only the loyal. At last, the cleared zone was as clear as it was going to get. They stood together in a command post overlooking the doomed district. Through a cracked window, they could see the spires of Administratum and Ecclesiarchy buildings, still lit, still occupied by those who refused to leave or were ordered not to. A Vox unit crackled. "Firing solution ready," came Victor's voice from orbit. "Hal's constructs are in place. Once I press this, there's no abort. Last checks." Barry leaned on a table, sweat dripping down his face. "This still feels wrong," he said. "Necessary or not, it feels like we're endorsing their playbook." "We're not endorsing it," Batman said. "We're editing it." "That's not a comfort," Barry muttered. Diana looked at Superman. "Clark," she said, "you don't have to be the one." "I do," he replied. His voice was steady, but his eyes were hard. "If we're going to live under these rules for a while, I'm not going to pretend someone else is making the ugly calls for us. We do this, or we walk away and let Varro push the big red button on the whole planet." He picked up the Vox. "Victor," he said, "execute." In orbit, a series of distant thumps rang through the Sanctity's hull as the cannons fired. On the ground, the sky above the hive lit up. Hal's constructs flared, a lattice of emerald catching the falling fire, shaping it into a downward cone. The shockwaves curved, blunted, redirected into the empty air above the already evacuated boulevards. The warheads hit, the heart of the hive vanished in white. Heat rolled out in a wall, roaring like a living thing. Buildings melted, then vaporized. Spires toppled inward. The Administratum Tower, where Vos Loren had signed his last falsified record, turned to a column of plasma and then nothing at all. The watching civilians packed into safer sectors screamed, prayed, or simply stared. Some dropped to their knees, making the sign of the Aquila. Others looked at Superman standing in the observation post and silently added a new figure to their mental pantheon of things that dropped fire from the sky. John felt the psychic shock as millions died at once. He caught it, held it, and bled it out into the warp as best he could. Not as a scream for vengeance, but as a single numb pulse of grief. It still hurt. When the fireball faded, a crater yawned where the Hive's most corrupt districts had stood. "Casualty estimates?" Batman asked. Victor's voice came back, clipped. "Still processing," he said. "Ballpark. Hundreds of thousands, maybe 1,000,000. Less than what the exterminatus would have done. More than any of us ever wanted to see." Hal's constructs flickered and died. He floated down to the observation post, face pale. "That was us," he said. "We did that. Not Darkseid, not some warlord. Us." Diana put a hand on his shoulder. "And we did it while dragging as many as we could. Out of the fire," she said. "That matters. It doesn't absolve us, but it matters." Superman watched the crater until his eyes stopped seeing destruction and started seeing the space where people no longer were. "Remember this," he said quietly. "Every time the Inquisition talks about acceptable losses from now on, remember that we know what it feels like." Varro stood in the doorway. He had watched the fire too, expression unreadable. "You have taken a step," he said. "You understand something now you did not before." Superman turned. "I understand that it's too easy to normalize this," he said, "to make a habit of it." Varro nodded. "That," he said, "is the closest thing to a safeguard you will get in this galaxy." Eostra did not burn, not entirely. Weeks later, the official story that spread through the Imperium went like this. A shrine world nearly fell to chaos when heretics infiltrated its holy cities and hives. A great ritual was interrupted by the Emperor's wrath channeled through his faithful servants. Targeted purges burned away the worst corruption. Loyal citizens survived by obeying orders and trusting in the throne. Most people believed it, because belief was cheaper than skepticism. The unofficial stories told something stranger. They talked about off-worlders who stood between demons and mortals. About a woman with a golden rope who made lies scream. About a man in blue and red who held up collapsing towers and then ordered fire from the sky to stop something worse. About a green light in orbit that caught the Emperor's own wrath and turned it aside just enough that some lived. None of these versions agreed on the details. Some turned the League into saints. Others into terrifying omens. In the warp, those stories half took. Threads of possible avatars, new minor gods of impossible mercy and defiant justice began to form and then frayed. Every time a survivor started to paint them as perfect, their own memories got in the way. "No," they'd say around campfires. "He looked guilty, like he hated what he'd done. Saints in the stained glass never look like that." "No, she bled," another would add. "Saints don't." No, the green light stuttered like the man behind it was scared. The myths refused to congeal into dogma. Joan smiled quietly when he sensed that. It wasn't victory, but it was resistance. On the sanctity of wrath, the League gathered in the Strategium one last time before the ship warped out for its next duty. The hololith this time showed a broader field. Neighboring systems, threat vectors, orc glyphs here, tyrannid biosignatures there, chaos raid patterns like infections. "This is larger than Eostra," Hal said, "obviously." "This was always larger than one world," Batman replied. "This was a test case for us as much as for them." Diana watched the slowly turning star map. How many times can we do what we just did? She asked, before we stop being horrified by it. That's the wrong question, Superman said. Ask instead, how many times can we do this and still make things better than they would have been without us? Barry flopped into a chair, exhausted. You know what I miss? He said. Stopping a bank robbery and everyone high-fiving at the end. No soul arithmetic, no cosmic horror, just jail and paperwork. Cyborg snorted. Back home, we were always balancing scales, he said. We just had the luxury of pretending the numbers were smaller. Varro entered, Rosette catching the light. We are ready to translate, he said. The warp lanes ahead are troubled. There is always more work. About that, Superman said. We've been talking. He looked around at the team, got nods, some firm, some hesitant. He turned back to the Inquisitor. We're not your weapons, he said. Not exactly. We'll help where we can. We're not walking away from this galaxy, not while we can make a difference. But we're not going to be pointed and fired without questions. Varro raised an eyebrow. You are in no position to dictate terms, he said. You are anomalies in a hostile reality. Without my advocacy, you will be hunted as witches and abominations. Without our help, Batman said. Yostra burns. The sanctity never makes it out of that warp surge. The next crisis in your map leaves a bigger crater. He stepped closer. You need us, he said, and we need your access. So we talk, every time. You lay out the calculus. We push back on the worst assumptions. We bring options you don't see because your whole life has taught you not to look for them. Varro studied him for a long moment. This is not a partnership of equals, he said at last. No, Diana agreed. It's a stalemate of necessities. Varro's lips twitched. Spoken like an inquisitor, he said. Very well. I will consult you, strategically, when time permits. He turned to go, then paused. Understand, he said without looking back, that there will be times when there is no third option. When you will either watch a world die or help me light the fuse. Your moral discomfort does not impress the warp. It only delays the moment you either break or harden. Superman's gaze didn't waver. Then we'll harden around the right things, he said. Not around excuses, around lines we won't cross. And when crossing them is the only way to save a trillion elsewhere? Varro asked. Then we redraw the map, Clark replied. Or we die trying. That's what being us means. Varro shook his head, almost amused. You are very bad at being imperial, he said. Perhaps that is why the galaxy has not yet eaten you. After he left, there was a silence. Hal broke it. So, he said, we're staying. For now, Batman said. We don't even know if we can get home, Cyborg added. Not without replicating whatever that rift was, and after seeing what it did to the fabric between universes, I'm not super eager to poke that again. Besides, Barry said, have you seen this guy's work schedule? He gestured at the threat map. Place is a dumpster fire with guns. If we bail now, we'll never sleep again. Diana smiled sadly. Heroes are not obligated to fix everything, she said. But we are obligated to stand where we know we can make a difference. We have found such a place, whether we like its terms or not. Joan looked out a viewport at the stars. The warp is learning us, he said. It watches, it tests, but it also adjusts. We have already prevented one new horror from taking root. That is not nothing. Superman nodded. Justice doesn't win here, he said. Not the way it did back home. There are no final victories, just less awful outcomes. He looked around at his friends. But that's still justice, he said. Justice isn't about perfect endings. It's about standing between the world and the worst version of itself over and over, even when you're tired and compromised and scared, especially then. Batman snorted softly. "You just defined the job description of a guardsman," he said, "and an inquisitor, and a commissar. Congratulations, you've gone native." "Maybe," Clark said. "Or maybe we're teaching their jobs a new word." The ship's alarms chimed, translation countdown. The deck thrummed as the Geller field spun up. Outside, real space bent to make room for madness. As the sanctity of wrath slid back into the warp, 4 vast storms turned their distant attention toward it once more. They tasted the new patterns in the vessel's psychic wake. Frustration, curiosity, amusement. Heroes in the 41st millennium. The idea persisted. It did not yet congeal into a god. It did not quite die either. For now, it was just a hypothesis, that even in a universe built on despair, there might be beings stubborn enough to insist that less horrible was worth fighting for. The warp watched, waiting to see if that hypothesis would fail spectacularly. The Justice League braced, ready to spend their impossible, compromised, necessary justice on whatever hell waited next. And somewhere far away in another brighter universe, a watchtower hung silent over a blue world missing some of its brightest lights. Unaware that in a different sky, those same lights were trying to teach a galaxy of nightmares what hero meant, in a place that had forgotten the word.